Hello, hello, beautiful soul traveler. Here we are in the wrap up video of the Ghostly Love campaign series that I've been honored to bring forward and share much of my insights and reflections around my growth as an empathic psychic medium, right from my childhood into my teens, into my early 20s and my 30s, and now even into my 40s. And the beautiful insights that I have been able to see as I've created these videos has been how much I really have grown and how much I really have come from this state of fear to this state of love and compassion and really wanting to bring forward this deep level of healing and completion in many ways when I am provided the opportunity to do so, which has been a huge gift for me on so many levels, and which I never would have received if I hadn't have done this beautiful reflection series. Because when we're in the moment and we're just being in the moment, we don't really realize the progression of how far we've really come and how far we've actually grown when we've been working through bringing forward a project or whatever it is that we're working on. And so this has been a wonderful and delightful experience for me to look back and see just how much I've grown and just how much I have been able to heal myself, heal the ancestral line, and heal many of the souls that were guided my way and help them to return home, which was such a beautiful honor and just a heartwarming experience that I'm so grateful for. So in this video, I wanted to really kind of just dive more into the encounters and really bring forward not just my own encounters, but some of the other encounters that were shared with me from my clients or just from conversations and passing over the years. There was a couple that were kind of percolating that I remembered. And it's interesting because some of the ones I'm going to share with you, I haven't thought of for years now, like years. So while I was pregnant, we were living in this small little fourplex. And I knew the basement was very haunted, you could say. And it didn't really seem to amp up the activity there, though, until after my daughter was born. And that's when, the lights were flickering more, we heard more noises. And there was one particular night I had just gotten my daughter down. We were both sleeping in the bed or trying to sleep. She was passed out, but I was still kind of awake. And I heard the door open and somebody come down the stairs and then open our other door. In this place, we had an outside door and then stairs to come down. And then you would come into the main door of the apartment. And I heard the outside door open. So I heard keys jingling. And then I heard somebody stomping down the stairs. And then I heard the other door open. And I heard movement and coats coming off, and I heard water running, and I heard the TV go on. It sounded exactly like when my husband had come home, and I was, oh, he's home a little bit early. And I went and listened, and I thought maybe he'd come into the bedroom to say hello and kind of see how we were doing. And he didn't come in. So when I didn't hear him come into the bedroom and I continued to hear noises in the kitchen and the living room, I called out and I said, "Hey, honey, love you. I'm glad you're home." And in that moment, everything stopped. And I didn't hear a single noise after this. And I went, oh my goodness, what is going on? Is there like a person in the house? Is it like, and of course, my mind immediately goes to being robbed or, killer, whatever. The mind can really, really go and elaborate many scenarios. So I didn't know what to think in this moment. And so I very gently got up and I kind of took a peek around the door to see if he was home or to see what was going on. And there was nobody there. The lights were not on. Everything looked, still and quiet. And I quickly ran back into bed. I wrapped my arms around my daughter and I just kept, or like I always actually at this point in time still had to have my bedside lamp on. So I had the lamp on low and I kept it low. And I waited and I prayed and I prayed and I called my team in and I says, please protect us, please keep us safe. I probably did a few more things in that moment as well. And I was just in this state of begging for my husband to come home early and just protect us because my daughter was passed out. I was in this heightened state of fear. So he finally did come home because I did not go back to sleep until he came home. And I even had asked him, I remember when he came home, I says, you didn't come home earlier, did you? And then leave really quickly. He's like, nope, nope, nope. And I was like, oh, And then I knew that it was the ghost activity that was there. And there was another incident in this place. And after this happened, we really didn't stay in this place for very long afterwards. I think it might have been a couple more weeks or a month at best. So in the time of my daughter being a newborn and everything, I had my sister, who was still living in the city with us, come over every Friday. And she was helping me. She would look after my daughter and kind of have some auntie niece time. And I would be able to have a shower, do dishes, all the things, just kind of feel normal again. While we were getting everything together to head out of the house and go pick up my mom, I was gathering things in the kitchen, making sure that everything was, good. We had the snacks, the diapers, all the stuff. And my sister was getting my daughter in the car seat. And she was playing with her and talking and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, she freaks out. It felt like she was screaming at me, but in retrospect, she probably wasn't. She was just like in this heightened state of panic. And she was like, oh my God, Teresa, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. And she grabbed the baby and she hightailed it out the door, up the stairs, out the other door. And I was so freaked out because I was like, well, what happened? Why is she panicking? And I was trying to fumble with grabbing the bag and my coat and getting the door and the keys and trying to lock everything. And in fact, I didn't even lock the door. I just closed the door and I ran up the stairs and then I locked the outside entrance door. And then when I finally got outside to meet up with her at the front of the house where she was like, I went, oh my God, what the heck happened? Are you okay? Is baby okay? Like, what's going on? And she goes, oh my God, Teresa, oh my God, I'm not going back in there. And I was like, well, what happened? And she goes, when she finally calmed down, she tells me that while she was, entertaining my daughter, she was, doing they're jingling the little rattle and everything that we had on the car seat carrier there. And she said that all of a sudden, my daughter had looked up over her shoulder and it was like she just started staring. My sister felt somebody lean in and put their hand on her shoulder. And she said, somebody touched me. Somebody touched me. I'm not going back in there. There's somebody in there. And my sister was so terrified in this moment, which of course worked me up even more because I knew there was things that was happening in the house there, but I didn't know what I know now. And so I was like, okay, well, I didn't even lock the door. So I just locked the other door and I said, just get her in the car and we'll just go and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So you know, we drive and it's good. But my sister does not go back in that place. And there was some other things that happened in this particular place as well. It was very active. And I did later find out that there was actually two spirits there. One was a male and one was a female. And from my understanding, they were both kind of husband and wife. Something happened where they both had kind of perished at the same time. And the wife was actually protecting us from the husband's energy because he was kind of a gruffy, no nonsense. He did not like children. He didn't want children. They actually did not have children in their relationship. And he was constantly pestering my daughter because he didn't like children. And so, but she, the wife, was protecting us and she was ensuring that we were safe. It was very interesting dynamic once I kind of understood what was going on there. Once I got out of the location, I did my remote viewing astral projection, like revisiting of all these places that I lived. It was interesting because I could see the dynamic that was happening where she was protecting us and actually quite liked and enjoyed us being there, whereas he did not. And so there was this interesting relationship that was transpiring there. But we did not stay in that place actually very long. We ended up moving back into my mom's house for a bit before we ended up moving up to, to the camp area where my husband was working. And that's kind of next to where I was kind of being guided to share some of these further encounters with you. So around the time that all this was happening, we were now in my mom's house, living out of there, and it was quite an enjoyable time while we were there of celebration and just having all the first experiences together, which was really cool and neat. But at the time, my husband, he was working up at camp, and it was a little bit of a trek for him because he had to be away from the house for so long while he was up there, and then he had to travel back. So it was really hard on him to be away from family dynamics and everything, especially when she was so young and there was so many firsts that he wanted to be part of. And so we collectively decided to move up there. Of course, this was into pretty much the start of winter in December. At the end of December, beginning of January, we decided to move up there to help his commute time. And so there was a company apartment up there, and we were able to go up there. And after, now of course, this happened a little bit after we were staying at my mom's for a little bit. So our daughter was almost 2 at the time when we decided to do this. And so we joined my husband at the time that he was going up there for that part of work. And so we were scheduling in places to look at while he was there. And unfortunately, though, it was not a lot of options. And so we ended up having to drive over to another town that wasn't very far away. And they had a little bit more places for us to look at. This one night after he got back from work, we basically packed up our daughter, went and drove to the next town over, and we basically made the whole day of, or the whole kind of late afternoon. He was able to get off a bit of work a bit early, and we went and looked at, we had 3 places to look at. The first one we looked at was complete wash, like it was a complete write-off. It was just a dive, and there was no way we were moving into it. The second one was pretty decent. It was an apartment. It had some things wrong with it, no yard, things like that, but it was okay. And the third one we looked at, now the interesting part about this particular place, and this is what I hadn't thought about in a very long time, was that the place looked really decent. It was a 3-bedroom townhouse with a backyard, unfinished basement, but it had its own laundry. And they were lumping everything in for one cost. So utilities, everything was all just one cost for the rent, which was really good. And it gave us lots of space, which was marvelous. And the interesting thing is that as we were looking through this place, now keep in mind, it was quite dark outside because it's wintertime. So the days get very short and we didn't have a lot of light. So it was around Oh gosh, I think 10 o'clock or after 10 o'clock. And by the time we ended up getting there to meet up with this person to see the place, and we start walking through the house. So you walk in, living room, kitchen, little bathroom on the back end, and then there's the stairway in the middle, and then you go stairs upstairs. Bedrooms upstairs were great, decent size. There was a bathroom upstairs, and it was really decently laid out. Curious part though was that there was no doorknobs on any of the doors, and there was locks on the inside of the door though, like with those sliding locks. And in one particular room, there was this big stain which looked like wax, and there was like a bit of a burn mark. So when I had inquired about that, they said that, oh, somebody had been burning candles or something, and one of them fell over, and but they were able to get it out really quickly. And when we asked about the doorknobs, they had said that the people were doing renovations. And so we were kind of like, okay, which seemed odd because, I mean, you would think that instead of putting a sliding deadbolt on the door and having the sliding deadbolts there, you would rather put the doorknobs on as soon as you were done, as soon as you could, because the doorknob will just keep the door closed. So it didn't make sense in what they were saying, but we kind of took what they were saying to be kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense, even though it didn't make sense. Now, the basement, though, is where I knew that this place had some love, yes, you could say, that was needed, and definitely some healing. So my husband and the agent, or the person who's showing us the place, went down the stairs first, and I trailed behind. Now, it was very late, so our daughter was actually sleeping in the car seat. So we just kind of had her just kind of tucked off to the side because we were like, she's sleeping. Let's just leave it that way. And we went down the stairs, and I got about halfway, and the person who was showing us were already down into the bottom. And they were talking about, oh, it has the washer over here. There's a cold storage. There's this, and there's these, tires that were left behind. And so they were just prattling on about a lot of stuff. And my husband goes, oh, honey, it's pretty nice in here. We could probably put a few things down here. And I got about halfway down when I just got the creepiest feeling, and I just stopped. And I kind of crouched down a little bit to kind of look past where, like, the floor, where you kind of walk past like the ground, the bottom of the floor, and kind of looked underneath. And it was so strange to me because I didn't know what I was seeing or not seeing, because there in the whole space, as it opened up into this fairly large room, which was decent, was a very unkept concrete floor. The walls were kind of crumbling, like the concrete was kind of crumbling and cracking in little places. The floor looked like it had not been kept up at all. There was a lot of like the cracked concrete, just kind of, just in places. And washer and dryer were kind of far on the underneath the wall. And then there was this little cold storage room kind of underneath the stairs, but tucked back further. And in the whole entire room, I was looking through what appeared to be this smoky, dense, yellowish haze. And I couldn't figure out what I was seeing and why my eyes, like, I thought maybe it was the lighting. Maybe my eyes were just really sleepy because it was late and we were tired and exhausted. But it was so strange because I'm seeing this yellow haze, and it's almost like this yellow smoky haze is preventing me from seeing what's really there, or I'm seeing what's there but I'm not understanding what I'm seeing. And so my husband keeps encouraging me to come down the stairs at this point in time, but I really don't want to come down the stairs because I know there's somebody down there, and they're a male. I actually see a figure. I don't make out details at this point in time, but I see a figure kind of standing by the tires in this corner that's actually right when you were to come down the stairs, be in that first corner. And I see this figure standing there, and I know that he's there. And I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm good. I got a good sense of it. And he goes, oh, just get down here and come see this cold storage room. There's lots of things here. You could put all your like canning and all this stuff, and we could really put some of the potatoes down here. I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. The whole entire time I'm down there, I feel like the hair on the back of my neck is now stand up on end, and I've got my arms, and I've just got this very unpleasant, creepy feeling. And of course, the fear walls have already come up because I am on guard now. I'm in this like heightened state of there's somebody here. I'm afraid. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm really seeing, perceiving, all the things. And now I really didn't want to move into this place, but because it was the best of the three places that we seen and we were all tired and exhausted, we pretty much made the decision right then and there after we came up the stairs, because I wanted to get the heck out of that basement as quickly as possible, that we were going to rent it. And so we signed the lease there. It was a short lease though, because we wanted the opportunity to be able to move when it was warmer, if we could find something a little bit cheaper or bigger or whatever. And we thanked the person for coming out to show us the place. And then we got everything back in the car, our daughter, and we drove back to the company apartment. Now, once we all got settled in and we got our daughter into bed, and she was already pretty much sleeping anyway, and we got ourselves into bed, I was sleeping for probably, I want to say maybe 2 hours, 3 hours tops, when I woke up in a cold sweat, panic, sheer terror from a dream, or what could be perceived as a dream, but what I know now to be I guess you could say the unconscious self, my soul self, my astral self, parts of me. I went there as a remote viewing. Maybe I even went into the records. Maybe it was a combination of all of this. I woke up from a cold sweat, and I had all this information that terrified me, freaked me out. So I got I was back at this place. And I was walking through the house. I got information as to why the doorknobs were all taken off, why there was locks on the door, what happened with the candle. And basically what came through from the stream was that the people who were living in this place before it was vacant and we had the opportunity to move into it, they were in fact renovating the place, which was true. However, what happened to have them remove the doorknobs and not put the doorknobs back on was that they were constantly getting locked in their rooms. So the doors would not open. They were held shut. And so in order for them to be able to get in and out of these bedrooms or these rooms in any room, they took the doorknobs off and they put the little sliding locks on. And the candle, there was I think she was a woman this was a woman's bedroom, and she was burning some candles, and I'm not sure what she was doing, whether it was like some kind of, I don't think it was a seance, but there was something that she was doing for maybe to like light a candle to bring peace and harmony and healing or something. I think she was trying to do some kind of, I don't want to call it a ritual because it wasn't a ritual per se, but it was more like when you go to the church and you're lighting a candle for a soul or a loved one usually. I feel like what had come through was that this person was trying to light candles for the ghosts or the souls that were in this place. And what happened was when she had done this, I don't know if it angered them or if it irritated them or in something happened, but something came and knocked the candles. She had more than one. She had them on this like plate, like this like metal plate. similar to a charger plate. And so they knocked the candles out. So they knocked the candles over, and the one big one fell on the floor. And of course, she was there because she was able to put it out right away. But of course, it left the stain on the carpet. And the other piece here was that they were constantly being bombarded by these souls and stuff. So they really did not know what to do with them. So that is what came through from this dream. I think there was some more stuff, but at this point in time, I don't remember everything. And I woke up in this sheer panic, cold sweat, going, oh, hell no, I am not moving into that place. And I really wanted to wake my husband up and tell him what that place was all about and that we couldn't move in there. But I knew that he would not believe me. I knew that he would think that I was being silly, that I was being crazy, that I was just, off my rocker, whatever. And so I kept this to myself, and we did move in there. Of course, I did tell my mom. Thank goodness I had my mom to share that with, because I was like, I needed to tell somebody, because I was like, I don't know if I'm crazy, like what's happening here. And anyway, we did move into this place, and I will tell you that the things I heard, I felt so watched. I was so on guard. There were so many things that happened, specifically with like the doors. Like I was constantly afraid that I was going to get locked into the rooms. And even though we didn't put the doorknobs back on, we had the opportunity. I think we did our bedroom door and the bathroom door, but we didn't put the rest of the doorknobs on. It just kind of was like, yeah, we'll just leave it. And the basement door, I remember, did not have the doorknob on either. And I remember my husband was off at work, and our daughter and we were just in the living room. She was watching a little cartoon show, and I was doing some stuff just on the couch. I can't remember what I was working on, and as we're sitting there, she's playing, and I'm just working away while she's watching this little show. The basement door, which, because it doesn't have a doorknob, it doesn't stay shut. It would just kind of always kind of be open just a little bit, because it couldn't stay tight in the door frame. And so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this. And I pause and I look around, and that's when I see that the door to the basement is going. It's opening a little bit more. It gets to the point where it opens about like not the full way, but about halfway. And then I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, well, how did this door open? Because we have no windows open. There's no draft coming in. Like, there's no pressure coming into the house. The furnace didn't kick on. Sometimes when the furnace kicks on, there's that pressure shift, so which can open a door. But nope, everything was quiet. Everything was good. It just creaked. And then I thought, okay, it's open. No worries. Just leave it. And then it went creak. And it closed back to where it was. And I'm like, okay. Every part of me was just steeped in fear at this moment. I was just wanting to get up, grab my daughter, and get the heck out of the place. I was like, nope, not doing this. And then it tried to do it again. And I said, cut it out. That's not allowed. You're scaring me. You're freaking me out. And I don't like it. Stop it. And then it did stop. And that was the creepy part, is that it stopped. And there was other things that happened in this place too. And needless to say, the majority of the time that we were living there, I could not live there. I could not be in that energy in the space. And so I stayed at my mom's. And Of course, my husband's like, the whole reason why we moved up here, Teresa, was so that we could be together, not for you to be there. And I says, I'm sorry, but I cannot be in that space. I said, I cannot explain to you why, but I just cannot be in this space. And he thought I was crazy. He didn't agree with what I decided to do, but he really didn't have a choice because I couldn't. There was a house that we moved into after this place that felt way better. However, I thought, oh, I can breathe in this place now. I can feel lighter and safer. And that place too, though, had some activity there. Now, before I go further into that place, I do want to just circle back to that townhouse. So I did find out years later that place had about 20 souls, I think is what came through, that were congregating there. And they died in a bus accident that was close by. From the time that bus accident would have happened and the amount of people in the area, and even particularly in that house, they would have been meeting them with fear. So there was this amplification of a fear. And so it was just building and building and building. Thankfully, though, my time there and my crossover team, they were able to get much of all this healed. And even now, as I'm talking about this, I kind of did a little check-in, and the energy feels much lighter there. I have not been to that place since, because it is a bit of a distance away from me. And quite frankly, I'm not even sure what the address was of that place, because I remember we moved in and we didn't stay there very long. It is good though now that like the energy feels lighter there. Now, with the house that we moved into, I was thinking it was my saving grace. And I was like, oh, yay, we finally have a place that is nice and spaced out. It's lighter, it's brighter. The basement was more finished in this place, and it didn't feel as creepy, even though there was creepy aspects about it. And I thought, oh, okay, this place is better. Well, this is the place where my daughter's toys, her little kitchen was going off all the time. This is the place where I ended up seeing myself as I was astral projected out of my body. I remember looking down the hallway and seeing myself looking back at me. It was the most surreal and trippiest things that I have experienced thus far. So it was very interesting, the experiences that I had in this place. I did actually even hear the angel choir singing. So in the early mornings, for many of those mornings when I would wake up in this place, I heard the angel choir singing in the morning. It was so beautiful. It just brought tears to my eyes every moment, because there's the joy and the celebration and the love that would pour through this frequency of music that would come pouring in over my body in the morning. It was just so moving. It was just so moving. The thing though that occurred with this place, with the ghosts, we could say, was that there was actually 3 ghosts that were in this place. There was a woman, there was a man, and there was a younger child. Now, the younger child was kind of more drawn to my daughter, which rightly so, because she's a kid, they're a kid, and so they kind of attracted to each other. And the male and the female didn't die at the same time. What was the interesting part about being in this place was that I started to develop chronic head pain, to the point where it felt like headaches, but it was deeper than that. And I also had this chronic chest pain that was just so painful that even though I wasn't sick, I felt like I was sick. I was coughing, and it was so intense. And so it was so painful and so intense that I did go to see a doctor. And that doctor sent me to a specialist, and I eventually got in to get a CT scan, and they checked everything out. I went through a series of tests, and they all came back to tell me that I was completely, quote unquote, normal. There was nothing wrong with me. I was a healthy, young, 20-something-year-old female, and that everything was good. So this was my first introduction to the fact that I was empathing what was really around me in my environment, specifically the ghosts, the spirits. I was empathing how they died. I was empathing their ailments. And this was really the first conscious awareness of empathing their illnesses. And it was interesting because I didn't understand that I could do that. I knew I was an empath at this point, but I thought that was really meaning that I was empathing other people's emotions around me, and that I really didn't know what was mine or what was theirs. And I thought this was really more of just the physical of like the people that were physically here. I didn't realize at this point in time that it also meant that I could empath the unseen, the spirits, the things that, you don't really know that they're there. So the interesting part was it opened me to understand this whole different dynamic, the whole different layer of being an empath and actually being an empathic psychic medium and what that meant. Because not only could I see, sense, hear, and know that they were there, but I could also feel and share in their experience of their moments of their death or their ailments, their struggles, their experience. It was a very interesting switch and a way to see that love and compassion piece, because it allows you to, or it allowed me in that moment to have a deeper respect for them and a deeper understanding of what they were experiencing. And so the moment I had the awareness of this, which actually ended up finally coming through from a book that my sister lent me, that was all on like the energy and the dynamics and of this one author and her experience with things, that's when all of a sudden I had, aha, I know what's going on. And the moment I connected in and understood that the pain was from the woman having her head, she fell and hit her head. And the man had the pain in his chest because he actually died of whooping cough. The moment I had these aha moments and I connected into that energy and went, oh, that's not mine, that's theirs. Everything lifted from my body, everything, it was gone. And I never had that problem after that. It was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And this is real for me. Oh, okay, so this is another layer that allows me to deepen into being a medium. It allows me to deepen into being this healer, this teacher, this guide home. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So then when it continued to happen later in other circumstances, I immediately knew what had happened. Immediately knew it wasn't mine, because I know what my body feels like on a regular basis. So when something, and this, I didn't always know this though, but this was the invitation for me to connect into my body and to take surveillance of my body and see how I'm doing and ask, is this mine or is this someone else's? Because in that question of, is this mine? Is this part of my energetic system? Is there something that I need to nurture in myself? Or is this an outside of me? That is what allowed me to get more understanding of the world around me. And now, fast forward a bit here. One distinction, even though I understood this when I was taking my psychic medium course after this realization of, oh, I'm empathing ghosts and spirits. And I was sitting around in this beautiful second or third day of this course, of the psychic medium course. And the instructor, she's talking away and she's saying, oh, if there's anything that comes up, just feel free to interrupt me and we can go from there. We all kind of nodded and we're like, yeah, sounds good. And so as we're sitting around, this one lady, she comes in a little bit later, so she kind of misses that part of the conversation. And she's sitting there, and it's interesting because we're sitting there, we're all collected together, and we're sharing our energy. And I'm listening, we're listening because the instructor is now going over what we're going to be talking, and she kind of catches this woman up on kind of what she missed. Well, Well, as she's doing this, I start to feel my whole entire body on fire. I feel like every part of me is just overheating. Now, I'm not at this point in time, there was no menopause, there was no perimenopause or anything in my field of vision or anything like that. So this was, what's going on here? I am burning up. And then what accompanied this burning up feeling was this sensation that I was being strangled. Like my neck was extending up and I couldn't breathe. And I felt like my whole entire body was about to explode in this overheating explosion of like this. And so this instructor was talking and talking and talking, and she didn't even take a breath for in this moment, or at least that's what it felt like. I'm sure she did, but and me being me, I didn't want to interrupt her to be rude because I wanted, to wait for her to kind of finish so that I could bring forward whatever was happening in my body. Because I was about to say, I'm sorry, I have to go outside. I need to get some air. And what I said in this moment instead was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there is something going on with me and I don't know what's going on. And I'm starting to kind of panic in this moment because here I am like trying to contain it and resist it. And I'm holding it back and I'm holding it down. And I'm just like, no, 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 just go away, just go away, just go away. I can't be rude. And the moment I just exploded and erupted and released into this and said, I'm sorry, I have to bring this through. I don't understand what's going on with me, but I feel like I'm being choked and I feel like my body is just overheating and I feel like I'm on fire. She goes, oh, you're bringing through somebody. And I says, yeah, I think he's a male. I didn't even know in that moment that it was a male, but this was a young male. And she goes, yes, it is a male. And she goes, you see how incredibly beautiful that is? And she's telling everybody how incredibly beautiful. I'm like, it didn't feel beautiful. It did not feel beautiful. It felt horrible in my body. It felt incredibly uncomfortable. It felt incredibly painful. And the next thing that happened, though, was so funny. And I says, well, I don't know what they have to say, what the message is here, but this is what's happening. And the moment I did bring that forward and there was this connection piece that the instructor validated for me, everything lifted from my body. I could breathe again. I felt cool again. My skin was no longer burning up. And the woman who came in late, she just stared and went, are you kidding me? And we all kind of paused and we looked at her and we went, what do you mean? Are you okay? Like, what do you mean? What, we don't understand. She goes, so was it a young man? It's a young man. And I says, yeah, it's a young man. And I'm pretty sure he was strangled. Like he was choked or in some way. And she goes, you're not going to believe this. We all were like kind of on the seat of the chairs and everything. And we we're like, what? And she goes, on my way here, my husband called me and said that one of his coworkers' son just committed suicide by hanging himself. And we all just went, holy crap. And of course, the instructor just was like, oh my goodness, you see how beautiful this is? So the message was the validation that he's okay, that he's there, that he's here, that this happened. And right away, this was celebrated. And but yet I'm still reeling with the knowledge that I was almost strangled to death. And it was just very interesting to see how this experience was a progression of the empathy, the empathing, and how it deepened being a medium and being that empathic psychic medium. And so these were more encounters that I experienced, and there are so many more. These were just some of the ones that were coming to my mind here. There were others at the hotel where it seemed like every hotel that I would go to, I would end up being met by somebody that was there. And of course, because I'm still unraveling at these moments, the fear aspect and deepening into to that compassion and that love component and that understanding that these are people's loved ones. These are loved ones. These are somebody's beloved. Before I had that true realization and that true understanding, as I shared in the previous videos, there was still so much fear ingrained in all these experiences. And one of the most beautiful ones that happened probably within the last 5 years was that I had a client, and at first she really didn't believe in what I could do. And she just knew that I had these abilities to connect in. And after I supported her with helping her with this one fella who was very stinky, he had bad BO. And we found out what was going on with him. He owned a cannery, and so there's the smell was from the cannery and the fish. And he was able to go, and she was like, "Oh, thank you so much. I don't have to smell that anymore. This is beautiful. This is so great." She actually took a lot of family trips back to her home that she grew up as a kid. And this one experience, she happened to be on a trip out there, and she ended up connecting and reaching out because while she was there, she had somebody call her name at nighttime. And she basically didn't know what to make of it. She felt really afraid. She was really scared. And so when I connected into the energy, I got this impression of this beautiful young woman, dark long hair, beautiful white gown. And she was very, just the emotion. Again, this is the empathy of the emotion, the deep sorrow and sadness that she was involved in. It was so intense. And the whole entire story unfolded where she was in love with this other man. They were going to run away and get married, but unfortunately his family had betrothed him to somebody else, and they snuck him away one night and had him married off. And by the time she found out what happened, it was already too late. And she moped around so much that her family married her off to this very unpleasant man who was somewhat of a controlling dictator in some regards. And he wanted to keep her around to have his children. Unfortunately, she wanted no part of having his children, so she made sure that she miscarried on a regular basis. And when she finally was kicked out of his house because she was useless to him, she found a life on the streets. And one night she was met with her demise. And she was just a very sad, troubled soul. In this experience, there was more to this, of course, but for the sake of keeping this video short and everything, when I connected in and I was able to connect with her energy, and we were able to cross her over. And I shared all this with my client. It was interesting because even though she trusted that it was done, she didn't really believe. And it wasn't until she came home, and it was a few weeks later, that her sibling, upon cleaning out the attic, found some pictures of the house. And in one of the pictures there in the upper window of the house was the woman who I described to a T. And of course, when she saw the picture, she got immediate goosebumps all over her arm. And she just went, "Oh my goodness." And the next thing that happened was the next trip out there, she ended up taking somebody from the airport with her. It was a man, and he followed her to the house. And she says, "Somebody's here, somebody's here." And of course, I connected in, immediately said it was this man, blah, 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 and got him to return home. And she was like, "Okay." And this time, though, it wasn't a photograph that helped to validate things for her. It was her nephew. And her nephew said to her, Auntie, what happened to the guy that you came with?" And she went, "What?" And she's like, "Oh, he went home now." And then he goes, "Oh, and you know, it's funny, I don't see that woman here anymore." And of course, my client was like, "Oh, so it wasn't just her, it was her nephew who's seen these souls as well." So it was such a beautiful experience for her to see the extent of her own gifts and abilities, even though she's still working through the fear of them on her own, as we've been working together. There's this beautiful awakening and this beautiful shift that's happening around her. And so for me, I'm just truly honored that I get to be a part of so many opportunities to heal and help bring that level of compassion, love, and kindness to these loved ones that are needing to return home or that are needing that little bit of extra love. And there are many other ghostly encounters that I experienced, but in that I've had my clients and just conversations in passing. But these are some of the ones that I just wanted to bring forward a little bit more to kind of see the progression of how far I've truly come and how far the others who've had conversations with me and who've had these experiences are moving through their own ghostly encounters in whatever capacity that's helping them to align with more of their own innate wisdom, their own true divine brilliance and remembrance. And I just want to thank you for being part of this Ghostly Love campaign and for listening and watching and for continuing to share your stories and your ghostly encounters in the comments, because every time we connect in to these energies and these experiences from a place of love and compassion and a place of really truly wanting to help heal it, it not only helps to benefit the soul and the spirit that's there and ourselves, but collectively it shines out and it spreads out this beautiful love, healing, and compassion to all sentient beings and all forms of consciousness across this beautiful globe, throughout the galaxies and the universes. And it is just such a beautiful dynamic and a beautiful way to continue to work in this capacity. And with that, my beautiful soul traveler, may you walk gently, breathe deeply, and remember that your soul always knows the way. Thank you so much.